the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Well, I'm thankful this morning. I certainly need your prayers as well. And once I was clothed in the rags of my sins, was wretched and poor, lost and lonely within, but with wondrous compassion, the King of all kings, in pity and love, took me under His wings. Oh yes, I'm a child of the King. His royal blood now flows in my veins, and I, who was wretched and poor, now can sing. Praise God, praise God. I'm a child of the King. Now I'm a child with a heavenly home. My Holy Father has made me His own. Now I'm clothed in His love. I am washed in His blood, and someday I'll sing with the angels above. Oh yes, I'm a child of the King. His royal blood now flows in my Well, a lot like Brother Jerry, I'm certainly not, the best person to stand up here and tell you about the Lord, but I don't mind sharing my story with you as well. And, I've been coming here a pretty good while now. They finally quit calling me young brother a couple of years ago. And, I wasn't raised up in this way, as y'all know. And, I sit there and think about, anytime I see Brother Jerry stand up here, I think about where I first met him and kind of the way the Lord has worked in my life. And and I was a kid, as we know. I grew up in a Catholic family, and it was I remember my great grandmother and how faithful she was. And I remember just how all she wanted to talk about was the Lord. And I look back and I think about where she is today, and I don't care whether or not she's Catholic or whatever. I know what she believed. And today that and that was one thing after she passed away that I remember. My dad, who I love with all my soul, and I talk to my dad 4 or 5 times a week now, and he just wasn't ever part of his life. And that I remember when I was just a young kid, and I would come down to Florida in the summers and live with my mother. And she, every Sunday and Wednesday and any other time, we would go to church down here in Anthony, and that's where I first met Brother Jerry. And I was just like my kids running around here. I was little, but I was thinking about the kids, how they run around here, and how we don't have Sunday school or whatever. That regardless of whether or not you think they are, they're listening, they're learning. And that it's funny how the Lord brought us to this place, Brother Jerry. It's really something, and I was started dating my wife now. I would come to that little building over there where we'd have church, and had no idea what I was getting myself into. And that I'd been to churches where there were hundreds of people, and I would come to church here at times and there would be 6 or 7 people, and you start to question, is this the right place for me? But I've been in meetings where there were 6 or 7 people that would, you could certainly leave this world at that point in time. The Lord was there. And there were, it just comes a point in time in your life when that you've been listening, and it's been wearing on you. And it wore on me one day that, I didn't know what else to do but get on my knees. And that's exactly what, I remember, I was, I think, 19 years old or so when I joined this church. And that, I was playing baseball in college with a bunch of buddies who were out acting like a bunch of crazy people. And that I was trying to live right and trying to do the things, that I knew the Lord wanted me to do. And that just wasn't enough for me. Playing ball with the boys and not cussing and not drinking and doing those things, I thought was along the right lines. But I'd come here on Sundays and I would sit there and I would just be in torment. And I knew that there was something else I needed to do. And that I used to on Sunday evenings go over to Brother Chris Watt's house and talk to him and play with his boys. And one night it just me and him there in the living room. And I don't think I was over there that night just to play with the boys. I was there to talk to somebody. And it could have been him, it could have been anybody. I could have went to Brother Stanley's house or Brother Bruce's, and they would have told me the same thing. But I'll never forget that night. He just told me to go home and get on my knees. And it's kind of like Brother Stanley talks about that spot in the backyard where he dropped on his knees. I still remember in my bedroom going home that night, and I remember the prayer I prayed, and I remember the relief I felt. I remember the weight lifted off of my shoulders that night, and I knew that was what needed to be done. And that was probably, I think that was Sunday night after church. And I'm sure could have made a phone call and had some people together, but I didn't know any better. And I just really just prayed all week long. And we came to that little church that day and that next weekend, and the brothers called for a song, and I felt like I had concrete in my shoes. I didn't want to move, and I was just so scared. And that I remember a sister gave me a hug, and I know she knew I was ate up. And, the Lord just kind of lifted me up here that day. And I'll never forget the relief and the joy and the shouting and the screaming. We talk about, we have a meeting here today of 30 people. And, I can tell you that if somebody were to join this church today, you would think that there was 1,000 people in here. And, I began to realize that this is where the Lord wanted me to be. And, that through my life, whether it was, all the different churches I'd been to, that, that this was real to me. And, that today I stand up here before you and I tell you, I'm not the best preacher and I'm not the best Christian, but, I certainly look to the Lord and I certainly lean on Him for guidance in our life. And my wife and I, that, we wouldn't have it any other way that to raise our children in this place and to be able to know that any time that we could call up a brother or sister and say, hey, will you pray for our daughter or our son or my wife or my husband or whatever, and that they're going to drop down on their knees and they're going to say a sincere prayer. And, I truly believe that works this morning. And, and I don't know what else to stand up here and tell you other than, He's been great with me. He's been good in my life. And, I don't regret a minute of it. And I know my wife doesn't either. And, that we, I joined the church a year before we got married. And I remember, that was one thing at that point that I know that I wanted. She had joined it years before me, a couple years at least. And anyway, that I knew that in order for our marriage to work, that the Lord was going to have to be part of it. That thank the good Lord today that, He still stands by our side in every decision and everything we do. So, I don't know what else to say today other than He's good. He's good in everything He does. Sometimes you might think that He's not watching over you or, you might question Him. But, at the end of the day, He's got it all figured out. And, I am thankful today. Thankful that the Lord blessed us to be here. When Brother Charlie called my name there, it kind of brings me back to a New Year's meeting years ago. And Brother Billy called me and Brother Eric Young, and we both kind of hit the bathroom and said, I'm not getting up there. It's a scary place. And, some of these brothers get up here and speak so well, and, they can quote Scripture and they can make it look so easy. That I won't forget back there sitting about the 4th or 5th row. And the first time I ever got up here when Brother Chris called my name on a Sunday morning, I'll tell you, I did not want to get up. But, sometimes you just got to get up and tell the people your story. And, maybe it'll touch one person. And if it touched one person, it's worth it. And, He's been good to me. It's kind of like I stand up here saying, we watched brothers and sisters come through that front door in wheelchairs. And they'll do whatever they can to get here, And just to make a small effort that we can is, it's
made it easy.
He sure has. So anyway, I'm going to take my seat, and I am thankful. I'm thankful for this little place. We don't come every weekend, but I was talking to my dad about it. He's like, man, y'all stay too busy. But our kids are involved in certain things, and you want them to be involved. But I am thankful for him being right there, for him being so good to us in our lives. So anyway, you come along with the arrangements, Brother Charlie.